Hello there. I'm a people watcher, and oftentimes, if I'm in a dance, if I'm at a bus stop, if I'm in the shops, or if I'm just sitting in the park, I love to watch people. And I conjure up a little story about those people. I create a scenario of what they're doing, where they're going, where they've been. And that's sometimes what I do. Well, this morning I was standing at a bus stop minding my own business when I found myself becoming again an accidental observer. There was a couple there with their little girl. She couldn't have been more than 3 years old. Mum and daughter had walked Daddy to the bus stop before he went to work. It was one of those ordinary family moments, and most people probably wouldn't have given it a second thought. Then I heard the little girl ask her mum, "Can we play when we get home?" Her mum replied, "We cannot play until Daddy gets home." My ears pricked up, not because there was anything wrong with what she said, but because that one sentence opened the door to a lot of different thoughts. As I stood there waiting for my bus, I watched the mother and child get in a car and drive off, leaving the husband waving them goodbye at the bus stop. And my mind started wandering, just as the bus approached us. By saying we cannot play until Daddy get home, was she teaching that little girl patience? Was she saying that family time is important? Was she simply letting her daughter know that she had lots of jobs to do during the day? Or was she accidentally teaching that fun only begins when Daddy comes home? Before I knew it, I'd come up with about 10 different interpretations of that one question. I'd heard one sentence and was constructing an entire family history for a family I'd never met. Have you ever done that? People watch and then create a story about them. Someone says something in passing, and before you know it, you've filled all the missing chapters. It's what some of us do as human beings. We don't just hear words, we interpret them. The interesting part is that our interpretation often says as much about us as it does about the person speaking. I never grew up with a father, so I found myself asking an uncomfortable question. Was I listening to that family through the ears of that little girl who wished she'd had a relationship with her father? I don't think I was jealous, but I do think I noticed something that perhaps somebody else wouldn't have noticed at all. It reminded me that our experiences quietly travel with us wherever we go. They stand beside us at bus stops. They sit next to us on trains. They walk into supermarkets with us. They influence how we hear conversations that have absolutely nothing to do with us. I had to remind myself that not everybody sees childhood in the same way. In Britain, we often talk about allowing children to simply be children. Yet if you speak to people from the Caribbean or Africa or parts of Asia or many other cultures, they'll tell you stories that sound completely different. A 3-year-old helping with the little chores, walking alongside older brothers and sisters, learning responsibility from a very young age, not because anyone was trying to take away their childhood, but because contributing to family life was a simple part of growing up. So when I heard that mother say, you have to wait until your father gets home, I immediately thought, she's not teaching that child independence. Why can't she play with her until her father gets home? And, I had a lot of different thoughts. It made me realise that even our ideas about parenting are influenced by culture. What one family calls independence, another family calls belonging. What one person sees as too much responsibility, another sees it as preparing a child for life. These days, we live in a world where people hear one sentence, watch one video clip, read one headline, and within seconds they've reached a conclusion. Case closed, opinion formed, judgment delivered. But what if we pause just long enough to consider there might be another explanation? At that bus stop, I found at least 10 possible meanings in that one sentence. Not because I was trying to be clever, but because life has taught me that people are usually more complicated than they first appear. That little girl probably skipped home and forgot all about the conversation within 10 minutes. Meanwhile, there I was, standing at the bus stop, conducting a psychological, cultural, and personal analysis without anyone asking me to. I'd looked at the way he was attentive to his wife, reassuring to his child, and thought to myself, how beautiful it must be to grow up in a loving family. Perhaps there's something we can all take away from moments like that. The next time you hear someone say something that immediately makes you think, I know exactly what they mean, just ask yourself one gentle question. Do I really? Or am I adding my own experiences, my own upbringing, my own disappointments, my own hopes, and my own history to what I've just heard? Sometimes the answer will be yes, sometimes it will be no. But asking the question might help us become a little kinder, a little slower to judge, and a little more interested in understanding each other. So today I'd like to leave you with this thought. Think back to the last time you overheard a conversation, saw someone behaving in a particular way, or made your mind up about a complete stranger. How much of your conclusion came from what they actually did? And how much came from the story you quietly wrote in your own mind? By the time my bus eventually arrived, the family had dispersed, and I'll probably never see them again. But that little girl gave me something far more valuable than she could ever have imagined. She reminded me that sometimes the most interesting conversations aren't the ones we have with each other. They are the ones we have with ourselves while waiting for the bus. More importantly, maybe that is why I hold on to God so tightly, because the Bible recognizes the pain of growing up without a father. But it also promises that God himself becomes a father to those who are fatherless. I think this scripture captures both the reality of the loss I subconsciously felt in that moment and soothed me. So yeah, it was interesting because when I heard the mother say that, I immediately got angry. Not openly angry, I just felt, why is she telling that child that she can't play with her until he gets home? And instead of thinking it as, oh, maybe she just wants them to have family time, maybe she wants the child to know that the father needs to be going to work and you can't always have what you want when you want it, like delayed gratification. And so when I ran those kind of scenarios in my head, it made me feel, yeah, okay, maybe she has a point. Maybe it's not about teaching the child independence. It's about teaching the child family life and family values. Daddy has to go to work. When he comes home, we can all enjoy his company and my company together and have some family time. And I think those were the moments, that's what I didn't look at because I'd never had it. But yeah, it was interesting because it was amazing how one little sentence had me thinking about a host of different things and a lot of different interpretations and a lot of different scenarios. And that family, they've gone about their business, and I was left on my journey to Mill Hill, mulling over it. So yeah, I just wanted to share that little experience with you. Maybe you can identify with it, maybe you can't. It's nothing great or major, but yeah, just thought share it.